everybody, Nick here, and I got a review for you today of a very weird knife that's been growing on me and I've decided is actually a gem, even though it's that weird. And that's the Chris Reeve TiLock. Chris Reeve Knives makes the Mnandi as well as the Shabazz, which I've also reviewed on my channel. The Mnandi's great, the Shabazz I didn't like at all. But I've been looking at this for a few years, finally found the one for sale and, well, at a good price, and grabbed it. So here it is, and here I am. Let's talk a little bit about it. First thing is the lock. This is what's called the TiLock. I believe it was developed by the Hawk brothers. And what it is this little roller here rolls along the top of the knife. And here, we'll watch. Rolls, rolls, rolls. And then falls into this little hole. And that secures the knife blade from going anywhere. Here, we'll watch it from the side now. Oh, there you go. And it's locked in. And once it's there, it's locked. And it's pretty damn well locked. I mean, this is not necessarily a hard-use blade, as you probably already figured out. But for any kind of everyday carry task, especially given that your thumb is forcing that lock in there, it's a damn fine lock. And I have no problem trusting it, especially even relative to, like, some of the liner locks that you see out in the world. The blade itself is very nice. It's got a nice hollow grind. It's S35V, and it's no slouch, good for slicing. No complaints. I can't vouch for the sharpness from factory because I got it used, but it's fine. It's a very, very pretty knife, which is kind of cool. It's very artistic. It's got kind of an Art Deco thing going, but it's very, very nice looking. With the polished brass, the anodized titanium, that's kind of a nice aspect to it. Another nice aspect to this knife is that it's very small. So here's your Spyderco Delica. And your TiLock is actually a little bit smaller than your Delica in the pocket. Actually pretty significantly if you count this blade bump, which is pretty cool. And it's not even that much bigger than your Mnandi, which is a tiny little knife. So it carries very, very small, particularly relative to bigger knives like your Benchmade 940, which is, you know, obviously this is a good deal bigger, or your Sleesh Bowie, which makes this thing look just minuscule. But the magic, and one of the cool things with this TiLock, is that because it's got this TiLock, which doesn't require any stuff in here, it can use the entire handle length for blade. And so you can end up with about the same amount of blade as your Sleesh Bowie in a much smaller package. And same thing with your 940 here. It's a little smaller, but the amount of blade isn't very different, which is cool. Very, very cool. So it's got this weird little TARDIS, bigger on the inside Doctor Who thing going on, which I like, and which is just fun. So that's nice. It's also a very simple design in that all you really have is your pivot screw and this back spacer, and then the clip screws in with another screw. That screw itself is not actually perfectly flush on the inside. I gotta mention that just to be fair, because I dinged the Benchmade pretty hard for that on this guy. But it's a very, very, not perfect flush, but it's damn close. So, whatever. In terms of one-hand opening, that was one of my big concerns. And initially, I thought it was pretty much impossible, but I figured out the way to do it. On the one side, you need to kind of pop it open initially and then just use your thumb to guide it the rest of the way in. It's very workable. It makes for sore thumbs for the first few days, but I've got it eventually, and I bet you could flick it, but that seems a little needlessly harsh. To close it, that's really tough. You can't just use your thumb like this. That you don't have the leverage, that's no good. So the way to do this is you put your index finger up here, you rest the knife against the pad of your hand here, and then you grab the pin, the mandrel, the barbell, whatever the hell you want to call it, right here, and you pull this way with your thumb and forefinger, and that collapses the knife, and your index finger just closes it. So again, in real time, that's how it looks. It's not bad. It's not great. Do I wish that the lock was easier to open with one hand? Well, very much so, yes. I mean, compared to your titanium frame locks, and given I'm good at titanium frame locks at this point, it's a lot slower. And certainly compared to your 940, it's slower. But it's workable one-handed, even for me with fairly small hands. It really, though, kind of works best if you treat it like a slip joint. With two hands, this is a beautifully easy knife to use. It's also not as intimidating if you slip joint it. Whatever. So, you know, one-hand opening is very possible, even with this weird lock. The only real bad part on this knife is the clip. So the clip is weird. It's got this kind of two-part construction, and you open the clip by pressing here, and that lifts it off the body of the knife. And that lets you slide the fabric of your pocket in there, or slide it into your pocket. Here we go. And the idea behind it is that when you want to take it out of your pocket, you just lift and pull, and that minimizes wear on your pocket. And the other idea is that it's supposed to be a little more secure in your pocket. I don't buy that. Last night I did some tests just in jeans and tried to take this and the Grimsmo Norseman and the Sleesh Buoy out of my pocket and kind of compared the amount of subjective force required. And even without hitting the lever, this comes out about as easily as your Norseman did. So it's, in that way, don't expect that this is going to keep your knife that much more secure, but it might minimize pocket wear and tear. If that's a concern for you, okay, whatever. But for the most part, the clip is just kind of ugly, and more importantly, this part up here snags on things, like seatbelts and whatnot. So I really do wish that Chris Reeve had used a clip more like what's on the Menandi, a milled titanium affair, rather than this gimmicky, functional moving clip on the TiLock. But this is also an experimental knife, so okay, whatever. This clip is pretty ugly. Such is life. The weird thing about this knife is that it's kind of contradictory. At some level, I mean, it's a great EDC folder because it's got a nice thin blade for slice. I mean, it's thick enough, but it's a good slicer. It's got a lot of blade to it. It's got good ergonomics. So at that level, it's a great EDC kind of blade. But it's also very pretty, and if you start using like food prep or anything, you're going to get stuff caught up in here. So it's not the perfectly functional EDC kind of knife. So you can kind of rule that out. And it's a little too functional to be art. It's a little too big in the blade to be just something you carry for art, although who knows? Everybody's got different definitions. More importantly, though, I think it's kind of marketed as a gentleman's big folder, and that can be true. It's got this clip, which is nice on slacks, and, you know, it's meant to be pretty and to take it out. But the thing is, you know, your Menandi you can take out in the boardroom and open an envelope, no problem. Your TiLock, not so much. This is still going to be a little big, a little weird to bust out in the middle of a meeting compared to your average gentleman's folder. But it's also not really a job site kind of thing. You can't just whip this out as you're doing home improvement because there's still a little bit of fragility coming from this piece here on the lock. And, you know, it's a very different affair. So this knife is kind of trapped in the middle between being a functional, everyday working EDC knife and being a gentleman's folder. I don't quite know who this is for. I think it is for me, because it's very pretty. It's meant for lighter use. That's kind of how I work. It's very smooth. It's very happy. And, you know, it's a good knife overall, but it's kind of strange in that way. The other ugly part about this knife, that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, is the price. This is a $470 knife new from Chris Reeve. You can get them used around $400, $425, someplace in there. And that's a lot of money. The fit and finish is great. It's a very smooth knife. It's a very pretty knife. But this is art. Fundamentally, 100% art. I mean, for $470, you can get a knife like this, which is functionally very, very nice. You're almost in Grimsmo Norseman money when it's not on the secondary market. And this is a knife that is perfect, flat out. You can also get more expensive materials, like your Menandi here has Damascus steel and nice wood. And, you know, that's only, I think, $75 more. So you're in some really high-end territory. So before you run out and pick up a TiLock, think to yourself whether this is a knife that you would carry, whether this is your style. I think this is my style in a lot of ways. It's less intimidating because it's artistic, but it's a capable, functional knife. It doesn't, you know, it's not a quick tactical self-defense folder because of the lock, but at the same time, you know, it works fine. So think of, though, whether this is the knife for you before you pull the trigger, or at the very least, buy it from someplace you can maybe return it if you need to. I started off coming around. When I got this knife out of the package, the lock made no sense to me. I couldn't work it one-handed. I was scared and confused and alone. And, you know, I didn't think that this was a great knife. Carrying it for a few days has convinced me otherwise. This isn't your perfect EDC knife. This isn't the best knife in my collection. It's not my favorite knife by any means. It's not really anything super, except for that cool bigger on the inside blade trick. But it's a really, really nice knife. It's very pretty. It's very lightweight, it's very simple, and I like it a lot. So take from that what you will. Am I recommending this? No, this is a knife for a very specific kind of person. But if you think it's for you, give it a try. You're not getting ripped off at that price. The quality is there, and it's unique. That's the biggest thing that can be said about it. So, anyways, I hope this is helpful. If you like the TiLock, give it a try. If you don't, run away. And I hope, you have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you very much.